Paranormal, Occult, Witchcraft, Extrasensory, Researchers, Power. That is what we call our little investigative team where we go out and test the borders of the real world. My name is Curtis. Most people call me Kurt. I will be sharing several of our stories and events, and eventually I'll even manage to start recording some of our investigations. But for right now, we're just going to start off with the events that took place. And if you want to check out some of our stories, please feel free to. Okay. This stuff has a history with my family. It goes back at least to my grandmother and her childhood, her younger days. We grew up with her telling us about this stuff and warning us about it and things like that. And you can't warn kids that are experiencing this stuff and expect them not to be curious. Okay, so we started digging and researching and playing and learning. For several years, we didn't do anything. Like, we didn't risk it. But eventually, I hit a spot where I needed more than religious, reflexive freak out. I needed actual hardcore answers as much as possible. So we're going to start with the first experience, moment. My grandmother, if you've ever seen the movie The Water Boy, my grandmother was every bit Bobby Boucher's mother in that movie. She was always convinced that absolutely everything was satanic and demonic, and it didn't matter what it was. If it wasn't the Bible itself, it was probably demonic as far as she was concerned. This would come up because I'm a child of the 80s, so I played with and watched the cartoons and the toys and stuff from Voltron, He-Man, Thundercats, Silverhawks, G.I. Joe, it doesn't matter. But as far as she was concerned, absolutely everything in any of that was demonic. Superheroes were demonic. Robots were demonic. It didn't matter. A machine that could move itself, no, that's a demon. Programs didn't mean anything to her. She didn't care. It didn't matter. It was just automatically satanic. So one day we were over here, actually in this house, and my little brother and I were playing with some Thundercats toys, and my grandmother was transporting a large mirror from one of the other rooms to the front bedroom. That bedroom is no longer there. It's gone. My grandfather added on an upstairs and had that bedroom taken out. But while the bedroom was there, they had started using it to store furniture and lamps and mirrors and things. So my grandmother was carrying this mirror over her head to get past us on the floor playing with our toys, and she started in on how demonic everything was, and these Thundercats, and like that just sounds demonic. And we're like, Grandma, the bad guys probably technically are demonic, but the good guys aren't. That's not how it is. And shouldn't you want the bad guys to be the demonic ones? Like, that makes more sense, right? And she said something else, and the mirror that she was carrying over her head inexplicably exploded. It was like somebody jumped up and just Superman punched down through it and shattered that mirror all over her. And she had a small freak out about it, and we were like, okay, well, So there was cleanup involved, and she was plucking pieces of mirror out of her hair for months afterwards. It was bizarre. I'm going to try my hardest not to say so much either. I really don't need to. Just hit a moment where I wanted to figure out which way I wanted to go with the transition from that one. So this was the first time that we as a family had experienced something like that together. Okay. My grandfather worked on some shipping boats and stuff. He was a chief engineer, So he would be gone for several months of the year and leave my grandma at home by herself. So to keep grandma from being alone too much, my grandfather bought my mom a house around the corner from their house. So the bad part of that for us was my brother and I would get forced to come over and sit at the house and spend the night with grandma so that she wasn't here by herself. But grandma couldn't think in any kind of modern terms. So for her, the sun was down, so we were supposed to go to bed at 6 o'clock, and we're like, that's not happening, grandma. We don't go to bed until 9:30. So she hemmed and hawed and balked at it and didn't like the idea of us being up that late, but there was nothing she could do about it. We weren't going to bed. So then she started complaining because we brought her the Nintendo and my personal TV. My aunt gave me a TV, and that was to keep the peace at my mom's house because we only had the one TV and it was black and white. Okay. My aunt gave me a little 10-inch color TV, and that was so that I had something to watch TV and play video games on and stuff. No more sharing. It was my personal TV that goes in my bedroom. It was awesome. Loved it. But coming around to grandma's house, bring my TV with us so that we can hook up the Nintendo. And so my brother and I, this is just what we did. And I'm giggling because this is one of those stories where it's just messed up. So I had borrowed the game Ghosts and Goblins for the old school NES, the original Nintendo. I borrowed the game from a classmate and let them borrow my Excite Bike game. And we were going to sneak and play this game, okay? That's the only way to describe it, because there was no way we were telling my grandma what the game was. She would have burned the house down with us in it first. And so while I was starting to hook up the game, my grandmother yells from the back of the house and wants me to come back there. So I said, okay. I turn to my brother and I tell him, hey, finish hooking this up while I go see what grandma wants. And he says, okay. So I go back and go talk to my grandma. She just wanted to complain about the TV and the video games and stuff and didn't want us leaving everything hooked up overnight. So unplug it when we're done, because she doesn't want that stuff causing any problems and burning down the house. And we're like, Grandma, that's not how electricity works. It doesn't do that. And she didn't care. So I was like, okay, fine. I will turn off everything and unplug it when we go to bed. I get back up to the front, and my brother is sitting on the corner of the bed. And I was like, okay. So I grabbed the game, and I put it in the Nintendo, and the game fires up. Ghosts and Goblins starts, and it is cartoony but slightly creepy with all the demons, ghouls, and goblins and zombies and monsters running around, and the game is incredibly hard when you're a kid. So we played and we took turns, and we just couldn't handle the game. So I had to start using some cheat codes and skipping levels, and it didn't matter. The game was too difficult. So we play for, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours. I mean, we're playing from between 4 and 4:30 and 9:30. Okay. And Grandma starts yelling at exactly 9:30 on the dot. Turn off all of it, unplug it, go to bed. We're like, okay, we're doing it. So as I'm turning everything off and winding up the cords and getting ready to unhook everything, I reach behind the TV and the Nintendo's not hooked to the TV. And I turned to my brother and I said, hey, when did you unplug the TV? He's like, I didn't unplug the TV. I was like, no. When did you take the cables off the back of the TV for the Nintendo? He's like, I didn't. I've been sitting right here. I was like, okay, but you hooked it up when I told you to hook it up. He's like, I didn't know how. So we had played for several hours without the game even being connected to the TV. Yeah, so I returned the game to my classmate the next day and was like, go ahead and keep Excitebike for a couple more days like we had agreed to, but I'm giving you back your game. So that's just one of the fun ones that nothing really serious happened. There was no moving things around, no objects floating, no strange sounds, but you can't play a video game that's not hooked up to the TV. That's one of those moments where you have to be aware that something else was going on. Okay? And it's such a simple thing, such a little thing, but my brother was, 6 or 7 or something? So, I mean, it's reasonable that he didn't know how to do it. He never did it at our house. So I just assumed he had seen me do it, knew how to do it. And we've had all kinds of wild moments where you have to know that this stuff is real, okay? I've had so many friends that didn't believe, that didn't know what any of this stuff was, and some were hardcore. It's all bull, it's not real, it's not true, it can't be. And then they'll come over to my house, and when we were kids, my mom's house, whatever, and they would watch things happen. A friend of mine, Rob, first time he slept over, we were having a video game party, so he slept over, and I explained to him, hey, you might see some things here that defy typical explanation. And Rob was like, oh, I ain't afraid of nothing, blah, 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 whatever. So, and we were relatively poor, so we didn't have like real trash cans with trash bags and stuff in the bedrooms. I just had a brown paper bag outside my bedroom door that I used as a trash bag. And once that was full, it would go to the dump, and I'd just put another one out there. It was no big deal. So while we're sitting in the bedroom playing video games, Rob looks up and is like, hey, wasn't that bag out in the hallway at first? And I was like, this would be an example of what I was talking about. That thing is probably going to keep moving until it's in the room somewhere. And he's like, but nobody moved it. And I was like, nobody's been through. And he's like, and there's no wind blowing. I was like, there's no wind blowing. It just got moved. And he's like, yo, dog, that's not normal. And I was like, it's normal around here. So over the course of the next hour or so of playing video games, the paper bag keeps moving across the floor until it's in the middle of the room under the light. And Rob is like, yo, do I need to call my mom? Like, is anything going to keep messing with me? Like, what is this? And I was like, nothing's going to mess with you. This is just what happens. And he's like, dude, this bag moved at least 8 feet over the course of the last hour and a half, and nobody's touching it. And I was like, I know. He's like, is your house haunted? And I was like, I don't know if I'd say it's haunted, but there are definitely forces out there that do stuff, and I mean, at this point we're in 7th grade or something, 6th or 7th grade, and Rob is like, I've never seen anything like this before in my life. I was like, you wait till you see it do stuff where, like, I'll have a drink, and I'm right-handed, but I drink with my left hand almost exclusively. So when I set something down with my left hand, it'll be on my left side. But I'll go to pick up my drink again, and it'll be on my right side instead. And I was like, that seemed weird. So I was thinking I must have forgot what I was doing, right? And switched hands and just set it down. That's the only way that made sense at first. But eventually I started monitoring it. I would put it down with my left hand and watch myself do it and make sure there was nothing. There's nobody else in the room. It's just me. And I would go for my drink again on my left side, and my drink is now on my right side. And I was like, got it. There is something actually interacting, and it's not hurting me. It's not making noises or doing anything other than mischievous stuff like moving a drink, whatever. So we'll fast forward a few weeks. I'm in school, and I guess technically I have to start with a flashback of sorts. when I was really little, I had a dream. And in the dream, everybody else around me was older, but I couldn't see myself. I assumed I was still a child, but I don't know, honestly, because I couldn't see myself. My mom, my grandma, my aunts, my brothers, sisters, my friend Billy. I mean, everybody's around, and it's yellow leaves and brown leaves. I mean, it's like it's autumn, fall, whatever. And while they're all hugging and happy to see each other, they're kind of crying. And I was like, reflexively, I asked, why are they sad? And from my side, a voice says, they're sad for right now, because you're not with them, but there will be time to play later. For now, we have work to do. And none of this made sense to me because I was like 3 years old, but I remember the dream because it really got to me. And I kept wanting to go and try and talk to them. And this man that was, to describe him as clear seems like the best description. I could see him, but I could see through him. And he wore some kind of a robe that looked, what I know now, like a burlap sack. It seemed like it was a very heavy material, very dense, did not hang and drape softly. And he had a rope tied around his waist, like he's some kind of a monk or something. And it was just really weird. Because again, I'm 3 years old. I don't understand most of what this stuff was at this point in my life. I just remember this was the dream. And so when I asked the man, well, what's your name? He looks at me and he kind of laughs a little bit. And he says, my name is simply too hard for your human tongue to pronounce. Call me Sam. I said, okay. So for years, I would joke about my imaginary friend, Sam. When the objects and stuff would move around, I would assume that it was Sam trying to get my attention, and I would pretend and laugh and play about it, whatever. Didn't really put a whole bunch of thought or anything else behind it. But so now that we've discussed and brought up Sam, we can get back to the fast forward a few weeks, and we're at school. And in school, I don't take notes. It wastes my time. I usually pick up most information on the first pass, and if I don't get it on the first pass, I probably won't get it at all. Okay? I'm trying really hard to remember to look into the camera so that on the screen I'm looking at you instead of looking like I'm closing my eyes all the time. So forgive me for that. Okay? But there I am in class drawing like I always do. None of my teachers expected me to take notes. They knew better. I was going to have a sketchbook out. I was going to have a pencil in my hand and an eraser on my desk, and I was going to draw for 40 minutes. Every day, all day. It did not matter. There we were, though, and this would be the one day. In the background, behind me and beside me, are Rob, Tiffany, and Jen. And the three of them are talking. I'm not talking. I'm entirely uninvolved. I'm engrossed in my sketchbook. And normally, a teacher asks me a question just to see if I'm really paying attention or not, and I can answer their questions. And it tickles them all because it's such a random thing, but I could do it. So this one day, Rob says something to Jen, and they're back and forth, and Rob asks me a question, and I start to answer him just reflexively, instinctively. And the teacher catches me talking and asks me to answer the question of what did she just say. And I have to tell the truth and tell her I don't really know. I was talking for a moment. And so she tells me to put away my sketchbook and put away the drawing and take out paper and pen and take notes, because now I've shown that I can't pay attention and blah, 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 blah. So I do it. I take out the sheet of paper and an ink pen, and then it hits me for no good reason. And I start giggling. And I pull out an extra sheet of paper and an extra pen, and I set it on the empty desk next to me. And the teacher says, "What exactly do you think you're doing?" And I said, "Well, if I have to take notes, my imaginary friend Sam has to take notes too." So Most of the class starts laughing because they think this is just goofy hilarious. But Rob doesn't laugh. Rob, on the other hand, knows about Sam, and Rob is like, is Sam here? And I was like, I don't know. We'll find out, I guess. So I start taking notes. My sheet of paper ends up filling up. I get ready to reach into my book bag to pull out another sheet of paper. And then I go, oh, Sam, let me get that sheet of paper. And the sheet of paper on the desk blows off the desk and flutters to the floor next to my foot. And the girls behind me, Jen and Tiffany, start freaking out. They're like, yo, what was that? How did you do that? And I was like, I didn't do it. Sam did it. Rob slides his desk a little further over the other direction. He's like, yeah, see, you need to stop playing. I was like, it's not playing. It's Sam. He's like, Sam, don't mess with me. I'm like, he's not going to mess with you. He doesn't. When does he mess with anybody? Sam doesn't mess with people. So the girls are like, yeah, this is not normal. So the teacher, seeing all the commotion, she's like, what is going on over there? And they're like, well, Kurt's over here doing some kind of weird black magic or something. We don't know what this is, but this is not cool. And so they get in trouble. Not me, thankfully. And while they're sitting there, I start writing on the new sheet of paper, and my ink pen runs out of ink. And I'm like, Sam, let me get that pen. Now, if you've been to school in the US of A, you have probably seen a school desk that has these ink pen grooves or pencil grooves in them, where you put the writing utensil and it doesn't roll off your desk because it's got that little groove that the utensil sits in. Well, the pen pops out of the little tray, slides and rolls sideways off the desk, and rolls until it hits my foot. Jen and Tiffany freak out. Rob is like, yo, that was wild. I'm like, thank you, Sam. And I pick up the pen and start writing. Teacher, of course, now wants to know what is the problem again. They're like, yo, you got to move us, because no, he's over here doing some kind of witchcraft or something. So they freak out. Teacher's like, what are you doing, Mr. Brown? I was like, I didn't do anything. My imaginary friend did. So all the classmates are laughing. Rob not finding it funny because Rob knows better at this point. So this is how Sam introduced himself to some of my other classmates. They became aware that there's this imaginary friend that hangs around me that does things. Okay? We'll fast forward to high school. I get into a fight, not of my choosing. This guy is determined to harass me, and he keeps trying to get a fight out of me, but I won't fight because I'm trying really hard not to fight. Finally, I lose my patience, and I'm like, fine, if you want to fight that bad, let's fight. So we meet in the hallway, and he hems and haws and stuff, and I was like, that's what I thought. So I start to turn to walk away. He turns like he's getting ready to walk away, and instead, at the last second, he spins around and socks me in the jaw. My head whips to the side, and I lose it. I start swinging wild instead of in control like I should have been. Years of martial arts, and completely wasted in an instant because of that surprise punch that, again, had he punched while I was completely ready for it, would have been different. But even when I saw it coming, I was like, you know what? I don't think he can hit that hard in the first place. So I didn't even try to block him. I didn't try to dodge him. I was going to take the hit and laugh him off. But he hit a solid punch. I'm furious, and I'm swinging wild, and he's swinging, and he can't hurt me at this point. So we get separated. After a couple of moments, Sam speaks to me and is like, stop fighting. So I don't know what's happening because I don't normally hear Sam outside. I only hear Sam in dreams and stuff, right? Like, whatever. But in this moment, his voice booms like thunder as he tells me, stop it. Stop fighting. I've got it. And I was like, okay. So I lower and just guard. No more swinging. And the fight only lasts another couple of seconds before we get separated, because at this point I've stopped fighting back. I'm just guarding. I'm blocking, deflecting. He can't can't connect a real hit anymore. I'm not trying to connect any hits. We both get suspended for, I don't know, a week or 2 weeks or something weird. And then get back to school. He decides he wants to try and fight again. I was like, no, dude, I'm not fighting you. Like, one, you're going to try and sneak somebody. And two, like, no, I'm not getting suspended again. I'm not getting expelled. No. So he tries to push me, and I sidestep him, and I smack his hands off me. I'm like, stop. So at this point, the gym coach comes by and sees me shove him off of me. So the gym coach gets on him and tells me to get to class. Again, luckily I did not get in any trouble for the second time around. The first time around, he tried to blame me for starting the fight, which was ridiculous, and the school didn't care. So this was all a week or two before spring break. Spring break comes and goes, and it's fine, it's whatever. And get back to school, and he's not there. It's like, what? What do you mean he's not there? Like, I don't care. Other people are like, did you do something to him? You did something to him. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, that's crazy talk. So at lunchtime, finally, somebody comes over and they're talking about what happened to him. And the guy's like, tell me, for real, like, did you do it? And I was like, do what? And he's like, he was working on his car during spring break, and his car burst into flames for no reason. And he got third-degree burns over 80% of his body. And I was like, nope, I didn't do a thing. It's hilarious, but I didn't do it. So this is what it was like having Sam around. There was a time where my dad had gotten drunk and come home and was out of control and freaking out about something. And he wound up trying to catch some unseen creature in my room by dumping out my box of comic books and trying to catch it under the box of comic books. Okay, that was weird. We had a Great Dane that I was babysitting for my aunt, right? And his name was Sir, and his name was Sir because what do you call a dog that's over 6 feet tall on his hind legs? You call him Sir. So Sir was laying on the floor one day while I was on the telephone, and Sir jumps up and chases an unseen creature back and forth from the living room to the kitchen. And you can tell he's chasing something that he's seeing because as he moves, his head whips backwards when it turns around and goes the other direction. So he whips around and spins around, and he does this until he is too tired and just drops to the ground and passes out. Then I watch his head turn as he slowly watches whatever this is move past him. Okay, so far, drunk person and a dog have seen this thing. There was a family friend that had a little boy, and her brother and I looked a lot alike. Well, her little boy needed to stay with us for a little while because she was having some problems, but nobody could get him to cooperate. I mean, he's 2 years old. He was terrified, I was the only person that he would go to because he couldn't tell me apart from his uncle. So as much as this frustrated me because I'm now forced to babysit, now I didn't agree to any of this, he would come in my room and want to play with my toys. And I had a sweet little G.I. Joe collection, pretty nice Ninja Turtle collection. I mean, he would always want to play with the Ninja Turtles though. So one day I finally was like, you know what? He can't really damage them, but so bad. And he really can't. So screw it. Let's let him play with the Ninja Turtles. And I tell him, hey Kevin, come here. Here's the Ninja Turtles. Go play with the Ninja Turtles. And his face lights up. He is and so excited, made his whole life at this point. So he takes the Ninja Turtle box to the living room, which is diagonal through the hallway from my bedroom door. I'm playing my video games as I always did at this time in my life. And I hear Kevin say, what? No. You can't play with that. Don't be silly. What? Don't be silly. And I'm like, that's weird.
because he's not making the toys talk. It doesn't sound like. It sounds like he's talking to somebody in the room with him. So I sneak into the hallway and look at him, and he's looking in front of himself at somebody, and he's talking to this individual, and he tells them, no, they can't play with the Ninja Turtles because they can't. Don't be silly. So at this point, I decide, okay, let's scare him a little bit. And who are you talking to, Kevin? He jumps and looks back at me, and he kind of grins and don't be silly, and turns back around and goes back to playing with the toys again. So at this time now, there has been a person under the influence, an animal, and an infant that have all three seen a creature, a being, something that is relatively small. They all looked at the same eye level as this thing. And while I couldn't see it, all of them could. This is not the only instance of this kind of stuff, but there we go. I just wanted to give you an introduction to why